Well, then, the ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula has officially opened, as you were hearing, the Women's League conference at Nasrec here in Johannesburg. During that address, he also called for discipline among delegates, whom he also urged to speak out when challenges confront the country. Mbalula also says that it's all hands on deck ahead of the elections next year. Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast is a political analyst and joins us now to talk about this ANC Women's League conference. A very good evening to you, Dr. Breakfast. So, Fikile Mbalula urging ANC members, or ANC Women's League members in particular, to be more active and speak out when various issues confront the country and the organization. But what is the role of the Women's League in 2023 politics?
Well, the role of the Women's League is to basically propagate, for the plight of women. There are quite a number of challenges that women are faced with. Issues of femicide, gender-based violence. I mean, if you look at unemployment, for instance, it affects mostly women. Issues of sexual harassment, rape, and so on. So the list is endless. So I'm over the moon that Mbalula took a swipe at Women's League because it tends to be inward-looking. It tends to be affected mostly by factional battles within the ANC, and that's why I was making the example that when a vice-chancellor is under siege, Women's League must break ranks and speak against that. So that is really something that must be welcomed because in the past we've seen the Women's League being defensive and not wanting to open up in terms of some of its challenges.
And you speak of factionalism. In the political report today, the leader, the convener of the task team that was basically put together to take the ANC Women's League to conference, Mbete, spoke about how, in fact, the Women's League was active or actively involved in the divisions that beset the ANC in the process to that 2007 conference where Jacob Zuma defeated Thabo Mbeki and in the period post. How then, in future, does the ANC or the League itself protect itself from the divisions in the party so that it is not destabilized by what's going on in the broader mother body?
The challenge of the ANC with regard to the Women's League in particular is what I call a femocracy. Femocracy is when men, they parachute women in senior positions in pursuit of their own agenda. And that relationship also normally has an economic exchange. And some women give in to that because of that economic exchange. So I think the Women's League, it needs to be independent. I'm not saying that it must break away from the ANC, but what I'm saying is that it needs to assert its own positions about what is happening in the country in terms of the issues that are affecting women, and not allow itself to be used by men who think that because they are.
Professor Breakfast, are you still there with us? Okay, I think he's coming back to us.
Power.
There we go. Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast, if you can hear me now, we had lost you for a moment. Perhaps you can pick up for us at the point at which you were saying what needs to happen is that the League must be independent in a way from the broader mother body politics.
Yes, I'm not saying that they must do as they please. I'm not saying that they must not abide by party discipline. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that the Women's League needs to speak its mind. It needs to demand for genuine transformation. The Women's League should not allow itself to be subsumed into a hegemonic agenda of men who want to use the Women's League as a vehicle in pursuit of their own agenda of wanting to hold on to power a bit longer by using them in some of the factional battles within the context of the ANC.
To what extent, I wonder, is the Women's League formation itself used then by senior women politicians in the ANC to advance their own career ambitions, because there have been successive presidents of the League who went on to become cabinet members. So was it just a stepping stone for them, or was there a genuine intent to advance the agenda of women equality, especially?
Well, I can only arrive at a conclusion that they were subsumed, in the bigger scheme of things, as opposed to advancing the agenda of women in the country. Because, for instance, if you pick and choose a term of office of any presidents that we have seen in the past, let's say Bathabile Dlamini, I've not come across any program of action during a term of office where, there were some struggles that the Women's League, was engaged in, or there were some victories that were won by the Women's League on behalf of the majority of women. She was embroiled in the factional battles of the ANC, aligning herself to a particular faction. That's why I cannot single out anything that was done by her.
Let me ask you then about something else that Fikile Mbalula spoke about today, basically telling the Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordon basically to pull up his socks when it comes to the work that needs to be done at state-owned entities, or actually be pushed out. Should we take that to mean that Gordon's time as a cabinet member is possibly up?
Yeah, I'm taken aback by that. I did not see that one coming, largely because Pravin Gordon has always struck me as a person who's aligned to the president, someone who's also aligned to market forces. So I've always thought that maybe he's doing as he pleases, because he's, untouchable. But now there seems to be a change of heart, during this term of Mbalula. He's speaking against ministers who are not performing the way they should have. So I am really surprised by that, because I've always thought that Pravin is powerful, and that people don't want to rub him in a wrong way because of his relationship with the president. And actually, he's the one who helped him, in the build-up to Nazareth, in the first conference that was held that elected Ramaphosa.
But Gordon, of course, did not play any significant role in this most recent ANC conference. I don't think he himself was even, or had made the cut for the National Executive Committee. So with that in mind, how much power does Fikile Mbalula, as Secretary General, actually have to make people like Minister Pravin Gordon, who are seen to be underperforming, quit or pull up their socks?
You are making a very significant point, that Gordon did not play a significant role in the recent conference of the ANC, and maybe he's no longer powerful the way he was in the beginning. But Mbalula, you can't blame him, because Mbalula is like a chief administrator of the party, like a CEO of the party, responsible for a party discipline. He has to make sure that the employees of the ANC, they carry the mandate of the party. They are the ambassadors of the party. They execute the mandate. So he cannot be soft to certain people. He has to crack the whip. But I did not expect him, of all people, to take a swipe at Pravin. It will be interesting, though, how Pravin is going to respond to those comments, because maybe he might interpret them as an ambush. I don't know.
Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast, good to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time tonight.